Hey guys, so today I want to talk about having a day job outside of music. Pros, cons, tips and tricks, all that jazz. For those of you who don't know, I currently work full-time as a pharmacy technician for a major pharmacy chain. I've had this job for about 3 years, basically since I moved to Chicago, so it's actually probably about 4 years now. And it's how I make most of my money. I do take gigs, I do freelance, I do teach a little bit, but my steady paycheck does come outside of music, which is what qualifies me to talk about this. The first thing I want to talk about is the inferiority complex that comes with not making the majority of your living from music. It can make you feel like you're not really worthy of calling yourself a professional musician. It can make you feel like you are amateur, can make you feel a lot of different ways. But the reality is your day job is a means to an end, and no one should be able to blame you or shame you for making ends meet. When I moved to Chicago, I needed a job, and it was a lot easier to get a retail position than it was going to be a music position. And I'm still keeping eyes out for jobs within music, and I'm taking gigs, but I like living in Chicago. Chicago is a relatively expensive place to live. I need a job, I need healthcare, and no one should be able to shame me for taking an opportunity that was presented to me. That being said, I'm still working towards having a career in music and being able to make the majority of my money in music, but considering that I've only been here for 4 years, no one can blame me for having a day job. There are so many musicians that continue to have day jobs. The best example being Charles Ives, because that's the one we all know about. But there's so many people who are professional musicians who don't make the majority of their living in music, but they're still professional musicians. They're composers, they're performers, they're these incredible people that we look up to, and they found a way to make ends meet, and no one should ever blame you for that. The pro, obviously, is that you have an income, that's steady income, which currently it's really, really hard for freelancers. And my heart goes out to all of my friends and colleagues who are completely without income right now because they're making up freelance jobs. I completely respect that choice, and it's definitely a choice that you can make. But if it's not something that you're willing to risk, or it's not something that you're comfortable to risk at the time, there's no shame in it. You get a full-time job, you get benefits, you get time off, and you also have the added benefit of you have people around you who are not musicians all the time. I might be alone in this, but I don't think I am, that sometimes I like being surrounded by people who are not musicians. It's nice to be able to talk about something other than music occasionally. Currently, I would like the subjects to change to something other than the current cultural climate, but usually I enjoy being able to talk to people about things, and also sometimes talk about my career in a way that doesn't feel like I have to justify myself. I just get to talk about what I'm doing, and sometimes I do have to justify myself to people who don't believe that music can be a career, but that's a whole nother story. That was actually the first video that was ever on my channel, but I digress. It's also a chance to learn more about the world. If you're in customer service, it's a chance to interact with the world in a way that is very different. The downsides of that are major. I can tell you millions and millions of stories about being yelled at for things that were not my fault in any way, shape, or form, and may have been the person yelling at me's fault. But it's also a chance to interact with people. I've made a lot of friends. I've actually gotten a couple connections and gigs from people that wandered into our store and have looked me up. I have colleagues in the hospital who follow my YouTube channel and watch my videos, so it's not a bad thing to expand your horizons. Again, there's also the thing where people can be terrible, but that's true of any job. Even if you're working in music for your entire paycheck, you're still dealing with people who aren't necessarily the best humans in the world, because there's really no career that I've ever seen where you can only work with people that you absolutely love and that's all you can do. it's very, very difficult to do that, even if you have your dream job and you're doing everything that you want to do. So a lot of the downsides that people see about day jobs outside of music are actually downsides to life. So you can't really say that it's a problem specific to working outside of music. Again, the downsides are that you don't get a lot of time to practice. A lot of you guys might know that I used to work nights, I worked weekends, I worked very weird schedules so that I could practice all the time. It's how the 365 was able to happen, it's how 52 weeks was able to happen. And I've since moved to days and no weekends, and that's better for what I'm doing right now and the gigs I'm getting and the way I'm playing. But it is very difficult to practice. It's something that I have to carve out of my day, and it's something that I really have to focus on. But the upside to my current schedule is that I can take gigs. I can take church gigs, I can take weekend gigs, and not have to worry about moving my schedule around. And most of the concerts that I play are in the evening, so it's easier for me to go, oh, okay, I get off at work at 5, I can eat some dinner, and then go straight to my gig. I just have to like bring my flute with me to work. And that's totally fine. Like, I work in a locked pharmacy, like it's pretty secure. So there are definitely ways to create logistics to get around these issues, but they are issues that are created. You do have to actively work to figure out ways to practice. And it can feel like your day job is taking up too much of your time, too much of your life. And if it isn't, then it sometimes feels like it's not fulfilling. There's a hard balance when you really love something else to find a job that like interests you and challenges you and keeps your attention when you really aren't focused on that in your life. I've been really lucky that I do really love pharmacy and I'm quite good at it. So it's been a nice balance for me. But that did take time to discover. And those of you who have been following me for a very long time know that I didn't start in the pharmacy. I did start as a cashier for this particular chain. So it also did take some work to move up in the company and to get to the position where I am, where I can have the benefits and the time off that I have. So it is a balance that you have to find, but I think that's true with any job. Even if you're teaching all day, you still are teaching all day, and then you have to find time to practice and you're exhausted and you've been thinking about music all day, so it might even be harder. So it's things that you have to balance and things you have to think about, and how many times can I say balance in this one video? So to end this video, I want to talk about some things that you can talk about in job interviews to help sell yourself to a position that you might not be on paper qualified for because you do not have experience outside of the music world. Something that I struggled with because I was a 23-year-old with no retail experience and no work experience aside from a few gigs and a research project. And I looked like a very unhireable candidate. I did have a master's degree and I am privileged in my skin color and my background, but it's still not something that people go, oh yeah, let's hire the music major. That makes sense. Like, they know how to do pharmacy jobs. But musicians are incredibly focused. They have spent however many years and however many hours focusing on one thing. And that's something that you can sell, that you are task-oriented, you're detail-oriented, and you have proof of that because you play an instrument at a very high level. Sometimes that's a hard sell, but it's usually a pretty good way to describe it. Like, you spent this many hours on this instrument and this is how good you are. And this is how you got these degrees that make no sense to this person that's interviewing you. You also have a ton of skills, interpersonal skills. Music is not an individual field. It cannot be. Even in what I do on the internet, I'm still collaborating with people in a different way, but I'm still collaborating with people. And if you just got out of music school, you've definitely worked with people and had to deal with interpersonal problems and with different personalities and with people who are coming at you from a completely different perspective. So for any kind of job, you need interpersonal skills, and it's very easy to leverage that with a music degree. The last big thing is that you're smart and you basically read another language. I know that sounds incredibly pretentious and I don't recommend you say it that way, but you have spent years of your life figuring out this very complicated thing that is music. You understand it and you can interpret it fluently. And while yes, it took you a long time, it's still something that you've devoted yourself to and that you've been able to learn. And think about the number of people who say, oh, I wish I could read music. Oh, I wish I could play the piano. Oh, I tried to learn piano. It was just too hard. That's a skill that you can leverage. You can do this thing that people think is incredibly difficult. You learned how to do this thing that is incredibly difficult. So you can learn other things that are incredibly difficult. And I'm sure there's 1,000 other things that you can talk about being a music major and applying for jobs outside of music, but these are the 3 that I kind of used in my personal interviews. And they're the ones that are the most obvious, clearly, but they're useful and they're job interview fodder. Like everything I just said, I'm sure you've heard in these videos talking about how to get a job. So it follows the same lines. I hope this was helpful and gives you some food for thought about taking jobs outside of music and not feeling super guilty about doing it. I do understand that it's not for everyone and it's not for me in the long term either, but I do really appreciate the benefits that it's created for me and currently my healthcare. So it's really not a bad thing if it's something that you make an active decision to do. You do have to think about all of these things, but now you have a better idea of what to think about. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you're new here, subscribe. If you want to support me more, please check out my Patreon, and I will see you guys very, very soon. It's actually the first channel that was ever on my video.